This Week with Bob Mueller on News 2.
This week,
we're going to go after the bad guys and we're going to leave the good guys alone with this bill.
Lawmakers make Tennessee the 19th state to allow open and concealed carry of weapons without a permit.
Shock, disbelief. Why my family?
Gun control advocates and law enforcement opposed the so-called constitutional carry bill, but lost the argument.
But it is sometimes a complicated issue, the mental health of young people.
Governor Lee outlines a new mental health trust fund designed to meet the mental health needs of Tennessee children. A spike in COVID numbers has Tennessee doctors concerned. More in our This Week cover story.
It's big, yes. It's bold, yes. And we can get it done.
$2 trillion. That's how much the president wants to spend on infrastructure. Hello again and welcome to another edition of This Week. Just as more COVID-19 vaccine becomes available, the numbers begin to rise in Tennessee of positive cases, and that has doctors concerned. More in our This Week cover story. But first, a look at the other political headlines of the week. Demonstrators marched on the Capitol this week supporting legislation that would make it illegal to require anyone to take the COVID-19 vaccine.
We're out here so that our legislators hear our voices. Look, this bill is a bill to secure religious exemptions to vaccines and medical treatment, and a bill that would say the state cannot mandate a vaccine for SARS-CoV. It's literally that simple, which Governor Bill Lee has gone on record several times saying that there would be no such mandate. So what we're saying is, here's a bill, put it in writing.
Supporters of the legislation say it's not about denying the effectiveness of the vaccine, it's about freedom.
People have a right to choose. We're not here to argue whether or not vaccines are good or bad. We're not here to argue the science behind COVID. We're simply saying we are against a government mandate to a medical treatment, especially without a religious exemption.
Many traveled from across the state to have their voices heard.
Well, freedoms are eroding every day, and it worries me. I don't like to see it. And this is a bill that is advancing freedom, and I'm all about that. I think people should have a choice. I don't think vaccines should be mandated at all.
Lawmakers let their voices be heard as well.
It is our body. We are in charge of our own health. It does not need government to tell us what we need to do for our own health. It is ours.
I can't believe that we're in a state of America today where they're going to try to force vaccines on us, and we can't say, you know what, I don't want to take a vaccine because I'm American and it's my right to refuse.
Calling it a once-in-a-generation opportunity, President Biden today kicking off his next big push, outlining a massive jobs and infrastructure plan.
It's big, yes. It's bold, yes. And we can get it done.
The roughly $2 trillion plan includes $115 billion for roads and bridges, $100 billion to extend broadband access to 100% of the country, $180 billion for research and development, including a major clean energy push, and $45 billion to replace every lead pipe in the U.S. By one estimate, it could create 2.3 million jobs by 2024.
It'll create millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
The president touting that his plan would fix 20,000 miles of roads and over 10,000 bridges badly in need of repair. Bridges like the Brent Spence Bridge over the Ohio River, one of the busiest trucking routes in the U.S., carrying more than $1 billion worth of freight every day. It now transports about twice as many vehicles a day as it was designed to handle.
Our infrastructure is crumbling. We rank 13th in the world.
To pay for it all, a tax hike, raising the corporate rate from 21% to 28%, new penalties for companies that ship jobs overseas. And Biden has made clear he wants to raise taxes on the most wealthy, but promising those making less than $400,000 a year won't see their taxes go up. Now, this is going to be a tough sell over on Capitol Hill. Republicans are not on board. Leader Mitch McConnell today calling this plan a Trojan horse for a massive tax increase. And there are already cracks among Democrats. Some progressive members say the plan actually isn't big enough. And with that 50-50 split in the Senate, this is likely to face a long road ahead. Mary Bruce, ABC News, the White House.
Now to our This Week cover story. Cases of the virus are beginning to creep up across the country. The CDC says they're up about 10% from last week, and that has Tennessee leaders on edge. State Capitol newsroom reporter Gerald Harris spoke with doctors who say they are worried.
Tennessee isn't out of the woods yet.
I'm fairly certain it's going to get worse.
It's been on the radar for the Tennessee Department of Health for several days.
What I don't know is how high the next surge will be.
2 Tennessee doctors are joining the chorus of federal leaders, including the CDC and President Joe Biden, in warning of what's to come if there's no vigilance against the virus.
Very recently, disease activity is starting to increase in terms of the numbers of new cases that we're diagnosing across the United States, as well as in our home state here in Tennessee.
According to Health Department data, 21% of Tennesseans have started the vaccination process.
Unfortunately, our hospital specifically, we've seen about a doubling of our total inpatient volume over the last 2 weeks or so.
While vaccinations are helping, people who aren't taking proper precautions against COVID-19 are not.
And we're not through the pandemic yet, especially for those patients that are not vaccinated yet. You don't yet fully have protection against COVID, and COVID is still out in the community. It's still fairly widespread, so we cannot let our guard down just yet.
However, Dr. Piercy says a dramatic rise in new cases may not be the case.
Yes, I'm concerned. Statistically, I don't think it will be as bad as it has been, just because of the numbers that we know are already immune.
Doctors are also warning that we could see a rise in deaths in 2 to 3 weeks. They're asking everyone to wear a mask and keep up with CDC guidance. Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment. Welcome back to This Week. Supporters call it constitutional carry. Opponents call it the Wild West bill. It's actually permitless carry, allowing adults to conceal or open carry a firearm without a permit. There are strong opinions on both sides of this issue.
There are those of us that believe in this legislation that say you should not be required to pay a fee, ask permission of the government, and yes, go to a class that, while helpful, is not the end of the day. We do not believe that you should have to do those things to exercise your Second Amendment rights. This is a massive step forward for freedom.
Opponents argue allowing permitless carry endangers police and the public, and law enforcement opposes the bill.
In this chamber, a lot of times about backing law enforcement, backing the blue. I'm for the blue. Support your police. I think we had a special session where I heard all about supporting the police from right up there where you're standing, Leader Lamberth. And there's not a police officer in this state that this makes safer. In fact, most major police organizations in this state all oppose this. They all say it's going to harm police officers. So anyone who votes green for this and votes for this legislation tonight, don't ever say you back the blue, because you're harming the blue with your yes vote on this bill, and there's nothing you can justify to say anything else, and every major police organization is opposing this.
A great number of officers that I have spoken with that actually support this bill. The organizations, as you stated, there are several organizations that have come out against it, but I can guarantee you that this bill will make Tennessee safer tomorrow if it passes than it is today.
I was surprised to hear you say that the training that is currently required with the permit that will no longer be necessary was not useful or meaningful.
You will hear folks that will email you and that will talk about this bill and say, oh my goodness, it takes away the requirement of training. If you think that one class, one time in your life makes you a perfectly safe firearms owner and user, you don't understand firearms.
Was that really your position? Because I can tell you, having been in the military, many people here have been, while you get more than a single day of training on firearms, a good instructor can actually dramatically improve someone's capacity to use a handgun or a long gun with a single instance of instruction. Do you not agree with that? Because that's what we're giving up with this bill.
I have been through that class, and I found it to be not a complete waste of time, but not extraordinarily helpful.
I took myself through it. I took my daughter through it at the same time. She was 11 at the time. You know, she passed the test at 11, and she learned everything that I was learning in the gun safety class. One of the things that's important about this gun safety class, so I just want us to be careful, you know, of what the message is that goes out to our citizens, is when to use that firearm, when you can shoot someone, when you cannot shoot someone.
The message should go far and wide. This does not take away the need for training. In fact, I believe that is just as important with the passage of this bill, if it passes, as it was beforehand. And I hope that it's not just the minimal training, that it's advanced training.
What the bill does is remove the requirement for training in order to carry a firearm.
The logic is simple. If there are more weapons available and more people, irresponsible people, not keeping those weapons safe, then we're going to have more weapons that are going to end up in the hands of criminals and at crime scenes. We're going to have more weapons in the hands of children, more juvenile crime. We're going to have more accidents at homes, suicides, accidental shootings. Most of the states that have gone to permitless carry have not seen a decrease, but have shown an increase in gun violence. So that good guy with a gun that's not trained is really a bad guy with a gun in the wrong situation.
This is not the end of the road. It is a massive step forward for freedom in our great state, and it is a huge step forward for public safety. But the battle continues to make sure that we are a free state and a free nation.
Outside of the legislative chambers, family of gun violence victims, clergy, and others came together with the hope of changing minds about legalizing permitless carry in Tennessee. News 2's Gerald Harris has more.
You have called us to love our neighbor. You have called us to seek justice.
Gun control advocates, ER doctors, and pastors representing nearly 800 faith-based leaders stood shoulder to shoulder.
Permitless carry of firearms that can take life unjustly is immoral.
Calling on Governor Bill Lee to reject one of his top legislative priorities, allowing adults 21 and over to carry a gun without a permit.
We don't want your sympathy, we want your action.
Nashville Waffle House shooting victim Akila Da Silva's mother, a leading voice on gun control measures, was part of the group to attempt to deliver the letters to the doorstep of the governors, but was denied.
You know, I think that it's really important in our state that we protect the lives of Tennesseans, that we protect the constitutional rights of Tennesseans, that we fight crime, including gun crime, wherever we can. I think it's possible to do all of those.
It is well known by the faith community that Governor Lee's connection and commitment to the money and influence of the National Rifle Association, the NRA, over against the will of 84% of Tennesseans and the advice of numerous experts, including the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the Tennessee Sheriff's Association, Governor Lee clearly demonstrates his corruption and commitment to political donations and power over the will and safety of Tennesseans.
The bill is a part of what Governor Lee is calling his public safety agenda. Reporting in Nashville, I'm Gerald Harris.
This week, both the State House and State Senate approved the permitless carry legislation, and Governor Lee has said he will sign it into law. Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment. Welcome back to This Week. Funding to assist K-12 families facing significant mental health issues was approved last year, but cut from the budget due to the COVID-19 crisis. This week, the governor renewed the proposal for the Mental Health Trust Fund, and the legislature allocated $250 million to fund it.
But it is sometimes a complicated issue, the mental health of young people.
Governor Lee knows firsthand how complicated.
I had a daughter who, at age 15, tried to take her own life as a result of complicated depression. Mental health challenges for young people are complicated but important, and they're something that we need to address in this state. And it's more important than ever. The challenges of this last year, as we all know, have elevated those mental health challenges for many kids.
The governor says help for those young people and their families is on the way.
And so we have made the decision together to propose, once again, a K-12 mental health trust fund in our state of $250 million.
Tennessee Mental Health Commissioner Marie Williams says in public service, you hope to be in the right place at the right time with the right tools and the right people. And this is such a moment.
With this ambitious, unprecedented, landmark investment, Tennessee is saying to the students of today and the students of years to come, your mental health matters. There is hope.
The COVID-19 pandemic has taken a huge toll on the mental health of young people.
Although COVID has been hardest on our state's young people, for we know younger people are reporting higher signs of anxiety, depression, at much higher rates than their grandparents and parents. Young people who have sadly taken their lives in the past for their friends and family. Governor, thanks to your vision and the support of the legislature, today there is hope.
1 in 5 children has a mental health diagnosis each year, and more than 60% of children who receive mental health services do so in their schools. The youth suicide rate has increased 56% in the last decade, making it the second leading cause of death of young people aged 10 to 24. That's why we are partnering with the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network, with Clark Flatt and the Jason Foundation, who's here today, with so many other critical partners with regard to youth, in particular, mental health.
The governor says this step puts Tennessee at the front of this issue.
I do think that this will allow us to not only elevate the conversation of the need for mental health services for our young people, but help Tennessee be a leader in the country in mental health services for children.
For parents who all know too well the feeling of hopelessness, who are living paycheck to paycheck and wondering what to do because your child is not acting the same. They are experiencing sadness, fear, anxiety, and you do not know where to turn. There is hope. For you know all too well what has been confirmed by the researchers at Vanderbilt, that more than 1 in 5 parents today in Tennessee have said they were concerned about their child. They were concerned about how to get their child help.
There are moments when we all stand together, and all in this room, and frankly, I think when Tennesseans stand together and agree that there are some things that are incredibly important for every family and every community across our state, and this is one of them, and so I'm very proud.
We're delighted to be able to put it back in the budget. It would probably be somewhere a little north of $200 million. It will be something that we can, in working with the treasurer, we're going to try to maximize the interest that we receive off of that, and then return that to provide services for young people throughout Tennessee.
Our economy coming out of this pandemic is strong. And one of the reasons that we're able to find this investment is due to how Tennessee handled the pandemic and how our economy and businesses have bounced back. This fund for K through 12 is very important in our state. It's only the first step of many steps that we need to take, but it's very important to make sure that we have the funding going forward to help the health and well-being of our school-aged children. You look at the suicide rates right now, They've increased by 15% for 10-year-olds to 24-year-olds from 2015 to 19, 15%. If you look at just the female population, 51% increase in suicide rates. The pressures and the things that our students are having to deal with is greater than it's ever been before. And just as the commissioner said, 1 in 5 parents have an assumption that something's wrong. But let me just tell you, it's a lot more than 1 in 5.
Today marks a momentous day of promise and expectation for students who have silently struggled from Memphis to Mountain City. There is hope.
I'm very proud that our legislature, together with the governor's office, will work to get this in the budget and to get it brought forth so that our department, along with partners across the state, can meet the needs of our children right here in Tennessee.
Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment. Thanks for spending part of your weekend with us. That will do it for another edition of This Week. We hope to see you back here next weekend for another edition of This Week, and you have a great week.